Om Jnanatirmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Namo Bhaktivinodaya Satchidanandanamine Gaura Shakti Surupaya Rupanoga Varayate. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is prayed to. Namo Bhaktivinodaya Satchidanandanamine. He was known as Satchidananda Thakur Bhaktivinoda. He is prayed to as the embodiment of the power of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the best of the followers of Rupa Goswami. Bhaktivinoda Thakur appeared in this world, dates here, 1836, something like that. In 1838. In Ulagram, the name of the village was Ulagram, which is very close to Navadvip. If you take the train now, local train from Navadvip, the station is Birnaga. It's about maybe 3 or 4 stations from Navadvip city junction. And from the station it's a short walk, maybe less than 200 meters to Bhaktivinoda Thakur's family home, which is still there, and which is maintained as an ashram. One of his sons, Lalita Prasad Thakur, actually Bhaktivinoda Thakur had how many sons? He had maybe 13 children like this, many children. I didn't prepare this, as you can see. Among which 2 took up Krishna consciousness very seriously. His sons he gave names like this: Bimala Prasad, that was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur; Amala Prasad, Ananda Prasad, Lalita Prasad. So Lalita Prasad, he maintained, after taking over that family home of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he maintained it as an ashram, and that's still going on today. However, there was much disagreement between Lalita Prasad and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur on what it meant to follow Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Therefore, the followers of Lalita Prasad and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur remain at a distance from each other, even up to the present day. Even though Lalita Prasad hardly has any followers, for that matter. Anyway, Bhaktivinoda Thakur appeared in Datta family. It means Kayastha family. His family name was Datta. Kayasthas are mostly administrators. So his father was a rich man, an opulent landholder, government administrator, highly placed. Interestingly, he was given the name Kedarnath. So he was known as Kedarnath Datta. So their family were Shaktas. That means they worshipped Durga and Kali rather than Krishna. And at that time, and even up to the present day in Bengal, there was coexistence, but not very friendly or not very equable coexistence between Shaktas and Vaishnavas in Bengal. Shaktas are total materialists. They worship the material energy personified for the sake of getting material benefit. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was born in such a family, and like many of the opulent Kayasthas of that time, he was among the first his parents were among the first to send their children for modern British education. The British were introducing the English medium education, and introducing through that medium that Western culture is so much superior to that of India, and that the great English writers like Shelley and Keats and of course Shakespeare, they have far superior thoughts to offer than the teachings of the Shastra, as the British called it. This means the Shastra. Shelley. As Lord Macaulay, one of the governors of India, wrote, he said that in any even not even very good, just normal novel of England, in one line of any moderate English novel, there is more intelligence and culture than in all the Shastra put together. So you can imagine what kind of education Bhaktivinoda Thakur got. He was born in a very opulent family, but what happened was that village, Ula, at one point, when he was very young, 7 or 8 years old, I don't get the details here, the whole village was wiped out by cholera.
By?
Cholera, a disease.
Oh, yeah.
At that time, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was not present in the village because he was away in Calcutta for studies. But he describes in his autobiography how he came back and he saw all the village empty, just devastated. So he was brought up in the modern way, but he also had education in Bengali and Sanskrit, which was expected, you see, of educated people at that time. Because mostly the Kayasthas were in government service, so that's why they wanted to learn English, but they also had to know their own culture and language to administer the people on behalf of the British. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur grew up as like this in great suffering circumstances. He describes that in his early childhood, as he used to hear the ghost stories they used to tell, Bengali ghost stories. So he used to be very afraid, especially at night. This is quite common with usual with children, isn't it? With young children. They're afraid of the dark. Maybe because they're more sensitive in that age. So he asked the night watchman, who was a big, strong Bihari, he asked him, how can you stay awake all night? Aren't you afraid of ghosts? So he said, so the watchman told him, no, I'm not afraid. I chant the name of Ram. When you chant the name of Ram, all bad elements go away. So at that time, Bhaktivinoda, the young boy, he developed some faith in the name of Ram, and at night, if he had to go somewhere, he would chant Ram, Ram, Ram. Otherwise, his upbringing was absolutely non-Vaishnava. He described how he used to see at the Durga Puja all the animals being sacrificed. So that was his upbringing. Plus, being brought up with the British education, he disdained his own culture. And like most educated people in Bengal at that time, especially those from the Shakta cult, he also disdained Vaishnavism, because Vaishnavism had been so badly misrepresented that people thought that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's cult is simply a sex religion, in the words of Vivekananda, simply an excuse for illicit interrelations between the sexes. So this was the background of Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his childhood and youth. He was a very moral and upright person, but apparently inclined towards Christianity and not towards his own culture. Of course, we have to understand that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is not a conditioned soul. In one of his writings, he reveals that his eternal form is that of Kamala Manjari, one of the young girl assistants to Srimati Radharani. So he's not an ordinary person, although he may have appeared to be so for some time. This is not uncommon in the appearance of great devotees, that for some time they may appear to be materialistic. But that is only a show. It means the Lord apparently puts them into some kind of illusion. But that is for some purpose, to show the greatness of bhakti, how one's life may be changed by coming in contact with bhakti. Now, on his maternal side, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his maternal family, they were Bengalis settled in Orissa, what is now Orissa. So he also inherited properties in Orissa. As a young man, he was called to be present at the death of his grandfather, his maternal grandfather in Orissa. And his grandfather waited for him to come, because actually his grandfather was a great mystic yogi who was just waiting for Bhaktivinoda to come. And then he gave him various instructions, and then he passed away. But on his grandfather's instruction, Bhaktivinoda Thakur then visited all the major temples in Orissa. So then Bhaktivinoda Thakur settled on that property in Orissa. That he stayed there, he lived there. That's called Choti. The village name is Choti. And he went every day to school. That means he was a teacher in Kendrapara, which is a town, some maybe 8 miles from Choti. And there, at the school, he introduced for the first time English education in Orissa. So he used to go by palanquin. The men would carry him. One that recently came in back to Godhead in English. That one devotee, he's been doing a lot of research into the life of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. One devotee means he's in Gauriya Mat-line. He's very old now. He's over 70 years old. So I think it was he who told me that. No, actually it was someone else. It was a disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who was also related to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, told me that he used to go by palanquin daily to school and back from his village. And he used to have men, they would take it by running. They would run. It was quite common in those days to go by palanquin. After all, there were no bicycles even, what to speak of cars and all these things. So rich people would, if they had to go some distance, they would often go by palanquin. So that's described how Bhaktivinoda, he would sleep as he would use that time for taking rest while he was being carried. So he had various posts. He was first of all in the educational service, but after some time he decided to go into law. So while he was teaching, he simultaneously studied law and eventually was accepted as a magistrate. And he was transferred here and there in various places in what are now called as Bengal, Orissa, and Bihar, and Jharkhand. There's a new state now, so in northeastern India, in various places. That part of India, he had various postings. So this is more or less from the external point of view, what is the life of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. But of course, a Vaishnava is not understood simply by saying he went here, he went there, he did this, he did that. Prabhupada used to say, if you want to know me, read my books. And similarly, Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote so many books. And he wrote in English, Bengali, Sanskrit. He even wrote something in Urdu, but that was, Urdu is like Arabic script, but that was for some legal documents. He wrote some things. He wrote so many books and so many songs which reveal his intense devotion to Krishna. Very useful songs. Especially Sharanagati, these songs are very useful for devotees who want to advance in Krishna consciousness. Very helpful. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, like I was saying, he was brought up with a Western outlook. But at one point he met someone who advised him that he should find out Chaitanya Bhagavat and read that. And after searching and searching, he eventually found a copy. You have to remember, in those days there were very few printed books, not like nowadays, where there are hundreds and thousands of books being printed all the time. And most people were illiterate at that time, even in Europe, what to speak of in India. So eventually Bhaktivinoda Thakur read that, and then that changed his whole outlook on life. And he understood that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's he had actually given the highest theistic contribution, far beyond anything given by Christians. But at the same time, he understood that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings had been so much misrepresented. So he took it as his life's mission to revive the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which he did even while working as a government magistrate. He used to deal with all the cases brought before him very quickly. He didn't waste any time, but he would very quickly, after hearing the two presentations, he would make his judgment very quickly, and people were satisfied that his judgments were very precise and sound. So he would come home in the afternoon after finishing his work at court, and then after doing puja and some reading and taking his meal, then he would take rest from 8 o'clock in the evening till 12 o'clock, and then he would get up and write. In this way he wrote so many books, very important books. All his songbooks are very important. Then especially Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur recommended that everyone should read the Jaiva Dharma and Chaitanya Shikshamrita. Jaiva Dharma that analyzes all different religious systems and shows that the actual religion of the soul is Krishna consciousness. It's in a novel format in which the Vaishnavas, they discuss with protagonists of different faiths. And Chaitanya Shikshamrita is an overview of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings, blended with Bhaktivinoda Thakur's own realizations, which are very wonderful. So many books. The first, well, actually even his childhood he wrote something, but that was not Krishna conscious. But he wrote, the first Krishna conscious book he wrote was Sri Krishna Samhita, which is a very unusual book. Because in the beginning, if you read it, you'll go crazy. Because it presents practically the atheistic understanding of Srimad Bhagavatam, according to the ideas of scholars at that time. The reason he presented that because the scholars, they were very doubtful about Bhagavatam. So he superficially empathizes with many of their ideas. But then he goes on to present, okay, all right, we accept all that, but now what is the actual message of Bhagavatam? What is the spiritual message of Bhagavatam that we have to consider? So like this he wrote so many books. He also introduced Namhatta, revived the Namhatta, which was started by, he envisioned that as being started by Nityananda Prabhu. The idea of mass, wide-scale preaching of Krishna consciousness, encouraging people to chant the holy names of Krishna. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was also instrumental in finding the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Actually, at one point, you see, Bhaktivinoda, he'd been performing his governmental duties, but he wanted to retire and fully engage himself in Krishna consciousness. Of course, he was trying again and again, but the British government employees over him, they didn't at all want him to retire because they were very satisfied with his service. He was very competent and trustworthy as a magistrate. There's one famous incident. There was, in Orissa, there was one yogi called Bishikesan. And here it's spelled wrong, who claimed to be an incarnation of Mahavishnu and had attracted many followers, including many women of respectable families who he had taken as his consorts. And he claimed that as Mahavishnu, very soon he would show his potency and destroy all the British in India. So at that time, I don't know what they'd call it. The big British official, the collector, that's what he was called, the collector at that time, whose name was Revanshaw. His name is still well known in Orissa. He got Bhaktivinoda Thakur to help him to arrest this person. And many people warned Bhaktivinoda not to do this. He said, it's very dangerous, he's a powerful yogi. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur did so anyway. And at that point, both himself and all his family members became extremely sick, as if they were about to die. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur pressed on. He didn't become discouraged. And eventually, Vishikha-san was, after some days like this, Bhaktivinoda Thakur ordered that his hair be cut. He had long hair. At which point all his yogic shakti was lost. And the Vishikha-san was imprisoned and shortly afterwards died in prison. So he was much trusted by the British and they didn't want him to resign from their service. But nevertheless, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was very anxious to do so. When he was stationed in Bihar, one time he decided that now he just wants to go to retire in Vrindavan. But as he was thinking of that, then in a dream he was directed that no, you have so much work to do in Navadip. You should rather go that side rather than to Vrindavan. So eventually Bhaktivinoda Thakur was able to arrange to transfer his service to Krishnanagar, which is close to Navadip. And at that time he built, with no intention to move away from that area, he built a home at Swarupganj, which is close to Krishnanagar, on the Jalangi river, just opposite Mayapur, and close also to Navadip town. So, at that time, the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was claimed to be in Navadip town, and the priests were making a good business out of that claim. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur doubted it, because Navadip town is a fairly modern town, because the course of the Ganga is constantly changing. And so that the present town of Navadip was only, at that time, maybe 200 years old. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he did much research in old scriptures and in seeing old maps. And eventually, one night, while he was sitting on the veranda of his home in Swarupganj, which is Godrum of Navadip, he saw from the direction of what we now call Mayapur, a bright shining light. We now call that Mayapur, means the ancient name was Mayapur. But that was at that time, and still is known, the village there is known as Miapur, and was inhabited by Muslims. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur became very excited because his research had indicated that the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was somewhere in that area. So the next morning he arranged to take Jagannath Das Babaji with him, and went in that direction and inquired from the local people, is there any special place there? We saw some vision. And the local people indicated there's one area which was completely covered by tulsi plants, and he said nothing else grows there. So they went towards that place. Jagannath Das Babaji, who was over 120 years old at that time, was being carried in a basket. He couldn't walk, and he had his eyes were completely drooped over, so he couldn't see. But when he came close to that area, he spontaneously jumped out of his basket and declared that this is the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So by giving lectures and writing, and by his traveling here and there preaching, Bhaktivinoda Thakur practically re-established the mission of Chaitanya, the movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which had practically been lost to various sahajiyas and cheaters and rascals. However, Bhaktivinoda Thakur wanted to do much more. He was very anxious to preach Krishna consciousness to the Western people also. And a small book he wrote, The Life and Teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He sent copies to various institutions in the Western world. He also used to send other of his books, even in Sanskrit, to eminent philosophers of the time, like Ralph Waldo Emerson. Maybe you've heard his name. In America he's famous. as a philosopher of that time. I don't think he's famous outside America. He is? So he wanted to preach more, but he was feeling that how much can I do? I'm family man, and how much can I do? So he prayed to the Supreme Lord that you please send some devotee to help with this work. And that prayer of his was answered in the form of his own son, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He also predicted that the day would come when devotees from all over the world would join the Bengali devotees in chanting and dancing Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana, which at that time was unthinkable, that Western people would be devotees. Practically it was unthinkable until 1966. No one could have imagined. So practically Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he started the modern Hare Krishna movement, which was carried forward very strongly by his son Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and of course brought to the West and spread very widely by Srila Prabhupada. Once Prabhupada said that, he was discussing Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he said that I am nothing compared to him. That's Prabhupada's humility. Here there's some of the books that he wrote. I mentioned Navadvip Dham Mahatmya, Navadvip Dhama Taranga, Srimad Bhagavatarka Marichi Mala. That's a collection of 1,000 verses of Bhagavatam, subject-wise. They're organized subject-wise. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he describes that he was ordered to write this book by Swarup Damodar Goswami, who is the intimate assistant of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Harinam Chintamani is also a famous book of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's. That Prema Pradeep that novel has also been translated into English. In other books, Bhajan Rahasya, Datta Kaustuba, Gauranga, Smarana Mangala Stotram, so many books. Prabhupada, he wanted that all of these should be translated in very important books. Hare Krishna. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. So maybe if you get some time today, you can read or sing some of the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and pray for his mercy. We are all products of the mercy of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which is that mercy has come in disciplic succession through Srila Prabhupada and the continued disciplic succession. What Prabhupada has given us has fulfilled the desire of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So there's no doubt that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is extremely pleased that this preaching of Krishna consciousness is going on all over the world. He himself wrote so many books and preached widely. He was the first person to distribute Vaishnava literature in the Western world. So devotees distributing books, they're all following in the footsteps of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So you can pray for his mercy, that he very much wants to give his blessings, that these books of Srila Prabhupada be placed in every town and village and home and library and school and office and shop and everywhere, all over the world. Parlor, everything, everywhere. Dentists, doctors, hospitals, everywhere. Hare Krishna. Now I was given some letter in writing last night with some questions. One of them, the first one I'll take up, may appear to be a little humorous. It is a little humorous, but at the same time it's very important. The question is that after seeing my Brahmachari book, one of the Matajis was saying that, just better understanding of as how to behave as a Brahmacharini. But that, however, Most brahmacharinis at some point want to become a grihini. That means housewife. So what to do? There are two aspects. One thing is that they want to get a good husband, but it seems that the best ones, they don't become the best brahmacharis. They don't marry anyway. So what to do? You only get the second rated or less. It's not necessarily true. It's not necessarily true. As Prabhupada said to one, he gave sannyas to one of his disciples, and other sannyasis were saying to Prabhupada, "Oh, how wonderful you see another sannyasi." Prabhupada said, "There's no great honor, it's just that no woman would have him, so there's no choice." Prabhupada was unique. He had ways of deflating people's false ego. That sannyasi is still a sannyasi, so it's one of the best. However, it's not necessarily that every brahmachari who gets married is completely useless. Actually, the ones who are completely useless, they also shouldn't get married. Of course, completely useless is an overstatement. No one's completely useless. But one who marries should be a responsible person. So, brahmachari life is meant for training to either remain brahmachari or to get married. And many responsible brahmacharis decide that considering that they have certain attachments, that it would be better for them to be situated as householders. But it doesn't mean that they're not good devotees. We have in this yatra several examples of very good and responsible devotees who are householders. So as a general principle, we encourage brahmacharis to stay as brahmacharis, but not always. Sometimes we say that for you it's better, you should be married. Sometimes even they may be very good devotees, but they may be recommended to get married. Then the next question came, well, how do you go about it? If a brahmachari, and the same thing applies to a brahmachari actually, if they want to get married, then what do you do? Because actually there should be no, or just minimal interaction between brahmacharis and brahmacharinis. Whatever is required for service, and that also should be very formal. In other words, the system which goes on in the modern world of a boy finds a girl or a girl finds a boy, that's not supposed to go on within our ashrams, or it may do, something like that. But actually that shouldn't be there, because then it creates a very polluted atmosphere. So I don't know if you have any such system, but the thing is, if you're thinking at some point in time I'd like to change my ashram, then you should approach the temple authorities and indicate as such. And then or temple authorities may delegate some senior householders to look after these matters, which will always be there. And then it can be the whole matter of matching young men with young women can be done in a considerate and responsible way. Then another question I got from one Mataji who is cooking for the deities, but who's left-handed, and is wondering what to do, because you're not supposed to use your left hand. Although in cooking, you can't help but use both. I mean, like if you have to hold a potato to cut it, for instance, so you have to use two hands. Prabhupada used to think left-handedness was something very strange. One of my disciples, I see him also, he writes with his left hand, holding the pen like this, and writes like this. Well, you can try to train yourself to use your right hand more, although in cooking, as I was saying, both hands have to be used for some things. But if you can't, then cook for your left with